computer systems, basically.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you think the difference is between hardware and software?
So hardware is like the keyboard, the monitor, and like the mouse, and software is like what's inside the computer.
If you say what's inside the computer, the thing is, there's a lot of hardware inside the computer. How could you describe software more
not
accurately?
Not like inside the computer as if like the motherboard, but like the inside like the digital. Like say the apps.
I'll give you a clue. The word I'm looking for begins with a P.
Shoot.
P-R-O-G.
Program, yeah, program.
Yeah, good, good.
It's the program.
Immediately you say program, you think software. So you need to explain that. So hardware is all the physical parts that make up the computer.
Yes.
And software are the actual programs. Just going to play this video clip. I'm going to turn my mic off for a minute.
Okay. It says there's an error. It says there's an error, so I think you can send me the link, then I'll watch it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can just send me the link and I'll watch it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Hardware and software, two terms you've probably heard of at one point or another. The odds are high that you use both on a daily basis, whether it's with your smartphone or personal computer. Let's take a deeper look at what these two things are and why they're important. Hardware is any element of a computer that's physical. This includes things like monitors, keyboards, and also the insides of devices like microchips and hard drives. Software is anything that tells hardware what to do and how to do it, including computer programs and apps on your phone. So video games, photo editors, and web browsers are just a few examples. Hardware and software are very different from each other, but they also need one another in order to function. Let's look at an example of this using a smartphone. In this case, the hardware would be the physical phone itself, and the software would be its operating system and its apps. If we were to take away the software, we would just have a dead phone in our hands. We wouldn't be able to make calls, text, or go online because it's not receiving any kind of instructions. On the other hand, let's say we have no hardware, meaning there's no actual phone. If all we have are the programs, we just have a bunch of instructions, but nothing to give those instructions to. So the big picture here is that hardware needs software to tell it what to do, but software also needs hardware in order to act out its directions. Technology will continue to evolve, and though we may not be sure of how things will look in, say, 100 years, this combination of hardware and software will be there, serving as its foundation.
Okay.
I've watched it.
Good. Excellent. Well done. Okay, so there are three important words about a computer system, and they are input, process, output. Input, process, output. Now, even though these words seem quite obvious, I still get Year 11s who are confused about those three words. What do you think input would be? If we are talking about hardware, so any physical thing that's a part of the computer system, what input devices have you got in front of you, for instance?
A computer.
That's the computer, yes. But how are you going to get data in the computer?
Oh, the Wi-Fi.
No, we're not talking about the connection. So there are two devices that you've probably got in front of you that you physically use.
Oh, keyboard
Good, excellent. That's one input device.
and the monitor.
That takes it out. That's output. So what other device might you have next to you?
Oh, a mouse.
Excellent. That's exactly right. So when we talk about input, we're talking about getting data, how you get data into the computer system. So you've mentioned two input devices that are in front of you. Can you think of any other input devices? How about this one?
A microphone.
Good, excellent. What else can you think of?
Speakers.
Na.
Phone. No,
Do
that's
speakers put data into the computer or do they take it out?
they take it out.
Yeah, so at the moment we're talking about getting data into the computer.
So mouse, microphone. Input.
Have you ever thought about sensors?
Yeah.
So I know you know what a movement sensor is, don't you? A motion sensor.
Yes.
Okay. So a sensor, it doesn't have a keyboard and it doesn't have a mouse and it doesn't have a microphone, but it does take the data and put it into the computer so that a person doesn't have to do it. So for instance, a movement sensor can detect whether somebody is passing. And that could be useful, for instance, for a burglar, a CCTV burglar alarm system to detect whether somebody is passing. This then leads to really important things like deep sea diving or outer space, where it's too risky for a person to be out there. But if we had sensors, they could actually detect that data and put it into the computer system so that somebody could analyze that data. So for instance, do you ever go to the supermarket and you stand on a mat and the door's open?
Yes.
That's because it's a sensor. So the sensor is saying, oh, Devlin's here, I need to open the doors. So nobody has said anything or put anything in with a keyboard or a mouse or anything. The sensor just detects, somebody's passed, and it puts that data into the system. So it can actually count how many people go into the supermarket. And for instance, that might be quite useful at the moment with COVID. Maybe a supermarket is only allowed a certain amount of people. So somebody could actually monitor that system to check, there's enough people in the supermarket, we must make the others wait. So input devices are as simple as the ones that you've got in front of you, like the keyboard and the mouse, but they can be complicated systems like sensors, movement sensors, etc. Then we move on to the process, and the process is what you actually said right in the beginning, the computer. Because what's inside the computer is a tiny little CPU, a central processing unit, which is tiny, but that's doing all the processing. And what the CPU is doing is using the hardware, so using all the data that you've put in from the mouse, from the keyboard, from the motion sensor, etc. And it's using its software, its programs to think, I need to process this data.
Yes.
So by processing it, the computer is matching up the hardware with the software. It's matching up what you want to do with the data that it's got. And then what does it do with it? Okay, it outputs it. So you mentioned to me when I asked about an input device and you said monitor, and I said, no, that's output device. Can you see that a monitor, a screen is an output device?
Yes.
Because it's putting the data out. Can you think of any other output devices?
Speaker
I doubt you've got one are you in your bedroom or in another room?
in another room.
Okay, you might have one in that room. What would happen if you wanted to print something out?
A printer.
Good, so do you think a printer might be an output device?
Yes, because it's
Exactly right.
printing out.
Good. So things like, you know, a projector, when you project something onto a wall,
Yes.
that could also be an output device because it's outputting the data onto the wall. Now, when we talk about sensors, we also have output devices. So if the motion sensor was detecting the person moving, and then the computer is processing that data, what would the output be?
If it's the
Think about a burglar alarm system. So if
noise.
if the input motion sensor has detected that somebody has passed, and then the computer processes the data, so it's read your data, it's used its software, now it needs to output it. What type of output device could be connected?
Speaker. Because like
Could be a speaker, but if it's more of a burglary going on, what might be more useful? Ling, 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 ling.
the alarm.
Good, exactly right. So an alarm system. So you're right, a speaker is an output device, but generally with these you would have an alarm. So for instance, in a room, do you have a security system in your house? Do you have little
Yeah.
motion sensors in the corner,
Yeah.
and the light lights up
Yeah, yes.
if you walk past it?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing a parent each day, when they come downstairs or whatever, they probably have to stop the security system working, do they?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure, okay. Because if you have a security system running at night when you're all in bed, so if a burglar comes in downstairs, the sensor would detect that somebody is in the room, the computer would process that data, and then the alarm would sound, because the computer system is detecting anybody that shouldn't be there. But in the daytime, you wouldn't want that all the time, would you? Otherwise the alarm would be ringing 500 times a day. So it's probably set automatically, for instance, to only work at night, or somebody maybe when they go to bed sets off the security system, and maybe when they come downstairs in the day, they switch off the security system.
Yeah.
Okay. What other output devices can you think of? So if the microphone is the input device for data getting into the computer, how else, what output devices can you think of?
Headphone.
Good, yeah, and
If
good. Anything else you can think of as output devices?
output has to come out and printer. Yeah, printer stuff.
Good, excellent, well done. Okay. Okay, so we've got a few words here that we just need to remember. So we've got hardware are the physical parts, and software are the programs. We've got input, which is data going into the computer system. We've got the process, where the computer is matching up the data that you've put in to its program. And then we've got the output,